Hello, and welcome to another episode of Geography Made Easy. In these videos, we try to make difficult geographical topics easy. And I would firstly like to apologize to all my students for the delay in uploading videos. So, due to some personal commitments and career related developments, I could not upload videos for more than a year. A lot of you have watched the videos. There has been a slight increase in the number of followers and subscribers, and you all have commented for more content and more videos on the subject, but I was not able to do that. So hopefully from now on I will be able to upload my videos. Today I am going to talk about one chapter which is a part of the environmental studies series which I was doing for the University of Calcutta. So tomorrow is the examination. Maybe this video can be helpful for your revision class. So I am going to talk about disaster awareness, or the chapter on disaster, which is there for tomorrow's examination. Maybe this particular video is going to help you with revising what has to be done. So let us begin. We are going to first discuss the difference between hazard and disaster. So what is the difference? So basically, a hazard is a kind of a phenomena, or it can be a substance which is harmful to us, or it can be a human activity also. So anything which is harmful to us is hazard. It poses as a hazard to us. So here we are dealing with basically natural hazards. Natural hazards are defined as environmental phenomena that has a potential to affect human societies and the environment. However, this is very different from disaster. A disaster is something which has a harmful impact on the society or community following a natural hazard event. So when the hazard actually takes place, it is called a disaster. So before that, it is not a disaster. For example, if in a classroom I have 20 students, and out of that, two students are into taking drugs. That is a hazard. But when these two students are influencing the entire class, and getting them to also take drugs, then it becomes a disaster. So in this case, the hazard, so students wanting to take or do something which is harmful to their health was hazard, which is always there. So there is the potential to get harmed. As soon as you step out of your house, there are hazards. You can get drenched in the rain. It's a hazard when you are not carrying your umbrella. But when you are carrying your umbrella and you lose your umbrella and rain falls and you get wet, it is called a disaster. So earthquakes, volcanic activity, cyclones, droughts, floods, they all have the potential of happening. When it is having a potential of happening, it's called a hazard. When it happens, it is called a disaster. So, in a lot of textbooks, especially in school, a difference between hazard and disaster is given. So, hazard, as I have discussed, leads to disaster. It is a potential for causing injury, whereas disaster is when injury actually happens. Hazards come with warnings, and disasters, when you ignore the warning, you have hazard. So when your body is, say, for example, giving you a signal, you are in the risk of developing, you are in the risk of having a heart disease. So you have the hazard of having a heart disease, or you have a history of having a heart disease. But when the actual heart attack happens, it is a disaster. So disasters always come with the fact that you get a predetermined warning. Let us move on. Two other concepts which are very important when we are doing hazard studies is risk and vulnerability. Risk is the probability that a hazard will materialize at a given space or time. So risk is always there. We are living at a risk of dying at currently at this moment. There is always this risk that the ceiling of my house can collapse on top of me and I can die. But vulnerability is when I am sitting in the so I am sitting in an enclosed space, in an enclosed room. The risk of death in this case by the collapse of the roof is less. But say I'm sitting in a dilapidated house where the municipality or any kind of other body has declared the house as hazardous or risky, and I'm still living in there, the potential of the roof collapsing becomes more. For example, if I walk on the road, the risk of being run down is less. But if I'm walking in the middle of the road with the traffic, the vulnerability becomes high. So vulnerability is the capacity of individuals to cope with or recover from hazardous events. So basically, if how much vulnerable you are, it can be measured. The more disadvantageous you are, the more vulnerable you are. Your risk becomes high. So risk becomes high with more vulnerability. So this is a very good example in case of climate change, where we see that currently the third world nations or the global south is having more vulnerability and is also having more risk of death and destruction due to the change in the climate. So this has to be assessed in terms of disaster management and disaster studies. So let us go into the classification of disaster. This is a very, very textbook kind of disaster. Disaster is divided into three types, basically two types. If I look at the extremities, man-made disaster or human-made disaster, and natural disaster. And we have hybrid disasters, which are in between. It's a combination of natural and human-made disaster. Since we are dealing with natural disasters, we have the four natural disasters here which are discussed. We have the natural phenomena which occur beneath the earth, then certain complex physical activities which are taking on the surface of the earth. We have hydrological and meteorological phenomena that is related to water, and we have biological phenomena. We are going to each discuss each of these very, very briefly. But mind it, this is an easy chapter. A student should go through each and everything which is being said in this chapter properly, because questions come and it's quite easy to answer and understand. So we start with the first type. We are starting with if you remember the previous slide, we are starting with the disasters of hydrological or meteorological in nature, that is rivers or water. The first type and the most commonly seen type of disaster which happens in India is the floods, and in many parts of the world where there is a lot of rainwater. When the rainwater is too much, it exceeds the normal limits, there are floods, and there can be all of a sudden a cloud burst or any other phenomena which can also lead to floods. This year, India is facing certain massive floods, and actually, the global south is facing massive floods for the last few years due to the climate change. But floods have been recorded for a very, very long period of time. They have happened in the antiquity also, and it is only that when you live very close to the river, you are more vulnerable or you are at more risk of being affected by a flood. But sometimes there are these large floods which are called the 100-year floods. They can affect places which are far away from your river as well. Floods can also be of not just river water flooding. It can be because of snow melt, which is commonly seen because of glacial melt, and we have coastal flooding where the sea water is receding into the land, as we see in this photo here. And we also have fluvial flooding. So floods which is made out of river is called fluvial, and we have the fluvial flooding. Fluvial is the kind of flooding we see in our cities, especially in the city of Kolkata or any other city, where even in Delhi, when there is a lot of rainfall and that rainfall is causing floods because the drainage system is not developed properly. So it falls in a kind of a hybrid kind of flood. But yes, fluvial flooding is also a problem. This is what happens when you have flood. massive destruction of life and property. Life, yes, because of disaster preparedness, India, the number of people dying because of floods has reduced, but it is, of course, still one of the major causes of death and destruction in the country yet. So let us look at the causes. Some of the causes are heavy rainfall, ocean waves coming onshore, such as a storm surge when there's a lot of water which can come in, melting of snow and ice, dams or levees breaking. So we can have a combination of these two or more things as well, and there can be other reasons as well for which floods can happen. So what do we do? So this is a very important part of disaster management. When you ask the question and you have to ask the answer, what do we do then? So forecast and warning, which has, I would say, it's better in India, much better than what it was in, say, when we were young in the 90s and early 2000s. It's better. We have better forecast and warning, and the community is prepared from time to time. And we can have land use planning so that you don't go and live too close to the river. And there can be also certain kinds of infrastructural changes. So adaptations, like right now Sundarban is adapting to the flooding situation, which has become very common. So those things can also be done. This kind of phenomena of in the village the people are warned, then they are rescued. So it's better, prevention is better than cure. You know flood is going to happen, you get the warning, you prepare to evacuate. So this is also helped by the government agencies who help. And of course after the flood also relief has to be provided to the people because they are affected. But this minimizes the losses due to floods, but yes, it's always a problem. Let's move into the next kind of disaster. Now, this is not a hydrological disaster. This is, as we have discussed, disaster due to the movement of the earth, which is the earthquake, also called a quake, tremor, or trembler, which is results from the shaking of the earth due to the movement of plates, and it can be due to other reasons also. But they definitely are one of the worst type of disasters that can happen, and it affects a lot of people in different parts of the world, including India, who has faced a number of massive earthquakes in the past. Let's look at the causes of earthquakes. So one is the movement of the plates, lithospheric plates. So we know that the earth's surface is not a single, the crust is not one single layer, but it is rather like slices of, if I have to just explain, slices of chocolate on a gooey substance like a cream. So, or maybe like something like a chocolate sauce. So the plate is like the Kit Kat which floats on the chocolate sauce. So these plates, they are not stable. They are constantly moving. So the earth is a very dynamic entity. Nothing is stable, nothing is fixed. It is constantly moving, and definitely takes millions of years, but it is constantly moving. These movements of the plates leads to earthquakes where the earth shakes. There can be volcanic activity, so if the volcano is erupting, that can also lead to earthquakes. And we have human activity, say for example, mining or a dam burst can lead to earthquakes. This is a photo of an earthquake which has happened, I think, in Turkey. So this is the level of destruction. We have seen some of the worst earthquakes, like the Bhuj earthquake was the one which is in the memory of at least our generation. We definitely remember the Bhuj earthquake, and there has been a number of earthquakes which has taken place in the recent years. Again, we are feeling tremors, and maybe it's just an indication that there will be a big earthquake hitting India in the near future. So, hazards that result from earthquake. So, because of earthquake, if you are on a flat field and your house does not collapse on you, nothing much happens. But there are certain problems which can arise because of earthquakes, and here are some of them. So we have ground movement. Yes, this leads to the destruction of houses and property and can lead to death and destruction. We can have landslide, which can get triggered because of an earthquake. So the land just starts coming down, and this can lead to again death and destruction. Soil liquefaction. Now, soil liquefaction is when, because of the earth movements, the soil, especially very clayey soils, sometimes they become liquidy. So there is a lot of physics behind this, why it becomes liquidy. But because of movement, it becomes liquidy, and this can lead to submergence of the houses. This is a common problem in certain parts of the world. Not everywhere there will be soil liquefaction, but it can occur. And surface rupture, which is very commonly seen. So what do we do again? What are the ways in which we protect ourselves from earthquakes? What do we do? So what Japan has done, which is hit by earthquakes so often, actually I think every day there are, I forgot the statistics, but there are a number of earthquakes which occur in Japan. uh, they have started building earthquake resistant architecture, which prevents, and this is also traditionally the Japanese houses are earthquake resistant, they are light. And so you need to build earthquake resistant designs, architecture, which can help protect the people from the earthquake hazards. Prediction and vulnerability. So and there are these drills. You're taught what to do in case of earthquakes, and the community needs to be prepared. Again, in Japan, they are very prepared that if the earthquake happens, what they're supposed to do. Even the small children in school, there are earthquake drills, just like fire drills. In India, most of the time when the earthquake happens, people don't know what to do. Now, that is a problem. So that is very important. Let us move on to the next disaster. The next disaster we have is cyclone. Now, cyclone is a very common disaster which affects uh, parts of West Bengal, coastal areas of West Bengal, Bangladesh, Orissa, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, mostly the eastern coastal states, and also in some rare cases along the Arabian Sea, we see cyclones can take place in Gujarat also. Gujarat, Maharashtra. So they are very violent storms, tropical cyclones. And these storms cause a lot of damage to life and property. They have very high wind speeds. And thanks to the Sundarbans in West Bengal, Kolkata is safe from a lot of the onslaught of the cyclones, but they are terrible storms. And we have seen some of the most terrible cyclones in history, and in actually during the COVID. Amphan was one of the very strong cyclones. There has been Aila, Amphan, and so many names. You keep naming every year. There are around two storms which hit our part of the world. So, what is the impact of tropical cyclones? Basically, three: high speed winds. We have already talked about that. Very heavy rainfall and storm surge. Storm surge is the very high waves which actually when they hit the land and they cause flooding. So storm surge can happen due to tropical cyclone. So on the one hand, you can have destruction because of tropical cyclone, and along with that you can have the floods. So double the problem if tropical cyclones hit that part of the world. Now, what is the way, or what are the preventive measures to protect yourself? One is, of course, which has become very good, and IMD is doing an excellent job, and I would say that it is quite successful, is prediction and warning. But because these cyclonic storms, the development has, it is not a very long term time ago that you can actually predict, but more or less you can. So like at least more than a week, and accordingly you can prepare the community to evacuate the place, and this is happening a lot. So the death and destruction is still happening due to the cyclone storms, but the number of deaths has actually gone down a lot. So I remember, I think in 1999, there was a super cyclone. It was just called, there was no name given to it. At that point of time, it was called the Orissa super cyclone. It hit parts of, I think, Paradeep and Cuttack. And I remember I was going through one of the magazines, I think it was an Outlook magazine, And I remember the photographs were so scary. There was a photojournalist who had gone and actually clicked photos of the people, like there was like a lot of people died. So because the people could not predict a storm, they died. And there are some videos on my channel where you can see that even the day before you're getting beautiful sunsets, you actually, and the storm is just a few kilometers away, it's actually not possible to understand that such a disaster is on the way. So the prediction system and the warning system actually has been very helpful to reduce the number of deaths due to cyclone. So the communities, yes, definitely it is much well prepared. There are a lot of volunteers who go and help during these after the cyclone storms, but the community is prepared. They are immediately shifted to these storm shelters or cyclone shelters which are there, which are around in nature. They don't get destroyed. But there are other problems also. Not everything can be managed, but yes, at least uh, loss of cattle, loss of lives is reduced. Land use planning can help, and structural interventions such as making cyclone shelters, these can help in preparing the community for the storm. Next we move on to tsunami. Now 2006 there was a major tsunami which hit. Tsunami is a giant wave caused by an earthquake or volcanic eruption under the sea. Tsunami is a Japanese word, so it is very commonly seen in Japan. So it's a Japanese word. It's basically, it means a tidal wave. A simple term for this. Japan has actually encountered tsunamis for such a long period of time. They are used to it. They have a lot of structures to mitigate tsunamis, and they also know, and the prediction systems of tsunami is good. But also, again, sometimes tsunamis can come unawares, but yes, you do from nature you can actually predict the tidal wave coming. So this is an example of how a tsunami can get formed. So here the earthquake has taken place, which leads to the buildup of energy, which leads to these huge waves forming and crashing on the shore. So what happens is basically it is energy which is getting transferred from one part, from the tectonic plates towards the shore. So you have a huge amount of kinetic energy which is creating this kind of a huge uh, wave which actually harms the coastal area. So this is what happened in 2011. You can see that these are two satellite imageries from 12th March and 16th March, where we can see that due to the tsunami, this part which was there intact is already gone and submerged. This is a coastal area, and this is the amount of destruction which has taken place. And there are more. There are certain more changes which have taken place. This land part has just gone. So with the tidal wave, you have to there are many references of these stories where if you see the waves or the water receding, run to a higher area. You hear a loud roar from the ocean. Again, that's something which is not right, and the water receding, sometimes there's a sound for that also. And there are official warnings, of course. There are these outdoor sirens, there are the telephone, there is the television, and right now there is the internet and radio, which gives you warning that a tsunami is coming. So in that case, you evacuate and you leave. Let's move on to a very common disaster, which is a landslide, a disaster which is currently devastating different parts of India quite a lot. So landslides are movement of rock, debris, or earth down a slope. So basically we have the debris, we have earth which is moving down a slope. Earth landslides are called mass wasting, which is the technical term for landslide, which can be of different kinds depending on what kind of material is sliding down. But let's keep it simple and let us keep it like that. Landslide is basically huge amount of soil and debris and sometimes mud flowing down, and they can occur due to two basic causes, natural and man-made, and mostly combined, which is what is currently happening. We have heavy rainfall. So during the monsoons, after the monsoons, you will see that in the hilly areas, landslides occur a lot. It can be due to earthquakes, deforestation, vibration from machinery, dam failure, and currently climate change and the amount of urbanization which has taken place. You build a road and on the hills, and you are constantly, a lot of heavy vehicles are passing through an unstable part of the land. Definitely there's going to be landslide. So currently what Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, parts of Jammu and Kashmir, Sikkim and parts of North Bengal is facing is huge amount of tourism, is facing huge amount of deforestation. Uttarakhand has faced a huge amount of deforestation, which has actually destroyed the stability of the land. And what is happening is actually not surprising. It's just that the government is not bothered, and people are not bothered, and they are not stopping building where it is very vulnerable. More forests need to be, afforestation needs to be done. Less amount of, heavy structural things need to be built on the mountains. This can reduce the landslide vulnerabilities. And you don't build lot of like big roads and lot of bales and stuff like that. You don't do that on the hilly areas, because then that can lead to landslide. What are the effects of landslide? I mean, destruction of ecosystems, and I think that's one of the worst things that can happen, and that is currently happening. Our Himalayas are vulnerable, our ecosystems over there are destroyed. But here I would say ecosystems are not just destroyed by landslide, but by human activity. If you go to Himachal Pradesh, you go to these cities which are there in the Himalayas, oh my god, they absolutely are. Definitely, you will see landslides. NH10 currently is facing lots of landslide, which passes through Shiliguri, North Bengal, and goes to Sikkim. It's cut off. It's because of the landslides. But the landslides are common. You're building roads, you're building railways, you're building houses, you're building anywhere. You're building, and then these buildings have pipelines which are feeding water into the soil. Definitely, there's going to be soil instability because the slope becomes unstable, and then it slides down. It leads to loss of human life. Yes, destruction of property and infrastructure damages. And I think there are more. I mean, it actually is leading to erosion, is leading to the destruction of the natural beauty of that part of that area. It's important. Now let us go into the man-made disasters. We have just briefly discussed about all the human-made disasters, and we'll go into the man-made disasters, and we'll discuss about a few of the case studies which have been given in the syllabus. So we start with the first type of disaster. So man-made disasters, let me just explain, are those disasters which are caused by human activities. It can fall into any category. For example, a dam can break and cause a flood. That can be a man-made disaster. It can be a disease which can be triggered by human beings. It can be any kind of gas leakage, hazardous gas leakage, which can lead to death and destruction. So all of these are different, and also terrorism is considered to be one of the man-made disasters. Disasters that are going to lead to a loss or destruction of life and property. So the first case study here we have is the Minamata disease. So what is the Minamata disease? It's a neurological disease which is caused by severe mercury poisoning. So this was it's a element. So it was first discovered in the city of Minamata in Japan in the year 1956. So these dates are important and where it was discovered, and you can get them as a MCQ, and you can also be given as a short answer in the questions also. So this was caused because methyl mercury was released into the wastewater by a chemical factory called the Chizo Corporation. So what happened here is that from 1930 to 1968, slowly the mercury mixed with the water. People were not aware; they consumed the water, and also the mercury got integrated into the soil and into the sediment by bacteria. So this toxic chemical got bioaccumulated and biomagnified in food, shellfish and fish. Basically, it is the mercury gets mixed in water. This water gets, it enters into the food chain and food web, as the water is absorbed by bacteria. This bacteria, on the other hand, is the food, the plankton food for different kinds of fish. And the Japanese, we know that they are coastal people. They eat a lot of fish. It's heavy. Their diet is consisting of fish. So they are fishing in the Minamata Bay, and they eat these shellfish, and they get the mercury poisoning. So just imagine mercury that is produced and dumped by Chizo Corporation gets consumed by the fish, and then finally by human beings. And this leads to mercury poisoning and lot of deaths, and it is actually something which continued for around 35, 36 years, but has reduced, so we don't get to hear too much about Minamata disease currently. So these are the different kinds of disasters which can take place, which are man-made disasters. We'll move into a very tragic disaster which took place in Bhopal, called the Bhopal gas tragedy. On December 2nd, 1984, you must have studied about Bhopal gas tragedy or heard about Bhopal gas tragedy in school as well. So the company which was responsible for this particular gas leakage is called Union Carbide. Very important name. Union Carbide had its factory in Bhopal. It's a US based company. It had its factory, and it was making pesticide. So the poisonous gas methyl isocyanide. So this was the poisonous gas methyl isocyanide. This escaped, and people were living around the factory, they died. The gas drifted over this densely populated neighborhood, and more than 5 lakh people were said to be affected. The figures have, of course, been manipulated. We don't know exactly how many people died, and that it was later discovered that the standard operations and procedures for running this factory was not being followed. So in then the company was shut, and very recently in the early 2000s also, this company still had all the toxic material dumped inside its factory area. There was a lot of litigation, and toxic phase were getting seeping into the wastewater. So there was a lot of problems. There were a lot of litigations. There were a lot of protests, etc., which took place because it was leading to soil and water contamination in the area. And we could see that even after the Bhopal gas tragedy, which took place, a lot of the people were being born deformed in this area, which was a result of this. So this kind of just behavior on part of multinational corporation was very unfortunate. Let us now move on to Fukushima nuclear disaster. I think the Fukushima nuclear disaster is one such nuclear disaster which many of you might You when you were young, you might have actually heard about it. So this took place in 2011. So in March 2011, where in Fukushima, Japan. So this what happened here is that there was an earthquake, and which resulted in one of the nuclear power plants. It was damaged due to grid failure. And a lot of the toxic material actually flowed in radioactive material flowed into the surrounding environment. And Japan definitely tried to they actually control the situation fast, but it became a threat, and where people started thinking about it, like how much it is not safe, because we are having these nuclear power plants all over the world in different parts because of harnessing nuclear energy. But safety norms, yes, we have to understand that. So it became a part of a debate. Next, we are going to a man-made disaster from natural disaster. I don't know what to call these nowadays, because definitely they are natural disasters, but I think we as human beings are also definitely responsible. So we have the Kedarnath flood. I think this was a cloudburst flood, and which has become so common now. This happened in the year 2013, but after that there has been, I think every year there has been these several floods which are taking place. This took place in Uttarakhand, and I think even this year there has been severe floods. Last year there has been severe floods in Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand. So what happened was a particular glacier, it melted, and it led to a huge amount of material and water coming down, and certain parts of Kedarnath, Rudraprayag, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, they all got affected by this huge amount of water and debris which came out. A lot of people actually lost their lives, they died. So, so warnings were not given, so people didn't really know. But I think also the unprecedented buildings which have been being built in the Himalayas also led to this kind of a disaster. So yes, these disasters are important, and in this context, I think for tomorrow's exam they are. Let's move into Cyclone Aila. Though I would say that post Cyclone Aila, there has been Cyclone Amphan, which has been more devastating. But the Cyclone Aila took place in the year 2009, and this was warned. This warning was given by the Regional Meteorological Organization, and it was the wind speeds went up to 110 kilometer per hour. So please be specific when you're writing these answers. Don't just give generalized answers. Nobody is interested. Your answers, your marks will also be very generalized. Um, it led to very heavy rainfall and storm surges, which lead to widespread destruction in different parts of Bangladesh and West Bengal in the Sundarbans. And clean drinking water and became a problem post Aila. So when you are writing your answer, when you're structuring your answer, when your reasons asked, please be specific as to what you are answering. It's important. I come to nearly the end of the presentation, but now we have COVID-19. I don't know what to talk about this, but this is one topic which, if questions are coming for the students, now you have experienced COVID-19, and you all were in school, so you should be able to answer about what happened, what is the coronavirus, where did it originate in Wuhan, how did it spread, and what was the impact. And of course pandemic, we had the quarantine, we had the lockdowns. So you should be able to answer these questions, and finally we have the different waves, and finally the COVID dies down, but there was vaccination, and the COVID dies down, it dies its natural death. But yes, we are vulnerable, and any other time such a disaster can occur also. It's a biological disaster, can get triggered, and it can take worse proportions. So yes, we need to be careful, we need to be more aware about these kind of disasters which can strike part of the earth. Now let's go into the last part, which is disaster management. We are here now finally coming into what ways in which disasters can be managed. So we have an act of 2005 which defines or directs the government to do what regarding a disaster. So prevention of threat, reduction of risk, readiness to deal with disaster, promptness, severity, assessment, rescue relief, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. These are the 7 points which need to be followed. And I would say that this is one particular department of the government which has actually progressed. I can at least say that when we were younger, when we were in college, disaster management was something which was an upcoming area of research and area of getting jobs. But currently, disaster management in NDMI is it has recruited a lot of people. They do a wonderful job with citizens, army, police, all of the different stakeholders coming together. There are a lot of these bulletins and also the IM people who are going to give you the warning. They also they are all linked together into one system, so they are doing a much better job. Of course, there is more scope for doing better. So also I think the readiness, promptness, definitely it's there. It's there, and rescue and relief and rehabilitation and reconstruction is also something which is meted out much better than it was in the previous years. So we have the NDMA or National Disaster Management Authority, which is the apex body which is looking after this disaster management, and disaster management funds are issued. And we also have the state disaster management relief funds, which also are given by the Chief Minister's Relief Fund. We have Prime Minister's Relief Fund, and we have the NDMA, which is acting together. So for all the stakeholders, they come together and work together. We can actually prepare ourselves better for to prevent from a disaster happening. So disaster warning system is actually divided into four pillars. So we need to have disaster risk knowledge. We have to constantly forecast and monitor. Warning has to be issued, there has to be communication, and there has to be preparedness and response of the community. So all the stakeholders, the government agencies, the different bodies need to be trained, they need to be aware, and the community also needs to be trained and it needs to be made aware about the disasters which can happen. So if you have any questions or doubts, please do not hesitate to put it in the comment section. And I hope this video is helpful, and definitely I will try and make videos more regularly from now on. I will try to put in more videos. I'll go back to the other videos which I was doing. Please share, and please share it with your friends, and let me know how you're finding the videos, whether they are useful or not. And see you in the next video. So thank you very much, and all the best for tomorrow's examination. Keep a calm head and go through and revise, and you can go through all my videos, and I think that they will be helpful. But please make sure that you are writing the correct answers and it's all not cooked up answers, because then you are not going to get marks. It's important to make sure that your answers have substance. So thank you, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.